Okay, this is video number three of three for the module Math Review and PPF. And what I want to do in this module is go over something called the production function, which is a function to show how we're able to make things in the economy, how much, what goes in and what goes out, meaning how much what we can produce, what are the inputs, what are the outputs. And also an example with the PPF with more than just two goods, an unlimited number of goods. We'll just put them in two categories. Investment goods, we'll divide them up into investment goods or consumer goods, and then we can still use this model, two-dimensional model on paper to examine things. Okay, so last time we went through the economic model, production possibility, frontier. And we had boats on one side, one axis, and bananas on the other axis. And we've got this PPF that shows how much we can produce of each. Actually, I'm going to bring this in just a little bit more to make my drawings. Like that. And inside the PPF is possible but not efficient. On the PPF is possible and efficient. Outside the PPF is considered to be not possible. At least for a test is not possible. I will show you later. It is possible temporarily to go outside the PPF. It's just not sustainable to do that for a long period of time. So this is how much we can produce boats or bananas or some combination given what is available on the island, given the number of people that are there, the tools that they have, the knowledge that they have, and so forth. So what if more people come to this island? More people arrive, and that means there's going to be more workers that can produce things. And we abbreviate that with a big capital L for labor. So more people come to this island. What is the PPF going to look like? Well, it's going to shift out away from the origin, and we should be able to produce more of either one or both. So this will be more labor. If we're making nothing but boats, we should be able to make more boats. We're making nothing but bananas, we should be able to produce more bananas. Now, what happens if we were to get, say, more farming equipment on the island? They wash up ashore, and we have some more shovels and hoes and bulldozers, maybe. So we'll say more farming equipment. Well, with this additional farming equipment, we should be able to produce more bananas. The abbreviation for this farming equipment is a big capital big capital K, which stands for physical capital. We don't use C because it's already used for something else, which I'll show you later. So with more physical capital, more farming equipment like this, specific capital to be able to use to make bananas, we should be able to produce more bananas if all we do is make bananas, but it may not necessarily help us out at all when making boats. So more farming equipment arrives to the island. We can't make any more boats, but we can make more bananas. This should make the PPF move out, and it should shift it out something kind of like this. Shift it out to the right. Should be a little bit smoother. So that we can make more bananas. So this will be results if K increases. Now, what if someone shows up there at the island who knows how to make boats and can teach other people how to make boats? have some boat classes, boat making classes. But with that new knowledge, the people on the island should be able to make more boats than they could before, but isn't going to help out with bananas. So we'll say here, better boat making skills. And these new skills to make boats is known as human capital. And the abbreviation is HC. So labor is just people that can work, unskilled. We add some skills to be able to do that, and they should be able to be more productive. So human capital is specific skills to be able to do a particular job. It's not the same thing as education. Sometimes it's measured the same way because it's hard to measure human capital. But we think of human capital as just the skills people have to do their job. So for example, if someone is a pilot, their human capital is to be able to say, take off, fly, and land a 747 at airports around the country. So we have some human capital specifically designed for making boats. That should help out with making more boats. If we make nothing but boats, we should be able to make more of them, but it's not going to help out with making bananas. So that'll change the PPF. Well, that's not much better. Let's see here. How's that? Okay. So with more human capital for making boats, once again, it should shift this PPF out to the right. It increases the possibilities of what the people in this country can do. Now, what if someone comes along, or someone there on the island figures out a new technology for making boats? Not just skills for making boats, but a new way of making boats. So rather than making them out of wood, banana tree wood, they figured out how to make them out of plastic or fiberglass, and they can find that on the island somehow. So you have this new technology, making things out of fiberglass. So we'll call that better boat making technology. And the abbreviation for the technology is, you think it might be T, but it's not. That's reserved for something else, taxes. A is generally used for technology. So if there's some new technology for boats, we should be able to produce more boats with the same number of people, the same skills that they had before. With this new technology, we can make more boats. It's not going to help out making bananas. So once again, the PPF will shift out with this new technology for making boats, but a little bit lopsided in this case. The difference between technology and human capital is that technology is the information and knowledge that's available for everybody to use. The human capital isn't the same thing. It's training that people have to be able to do their job, which will make use of that technology. So all these things here determine what the production function or what the PPF is going to look like. And we can put that into a function. And we can say that the total production of boats and bananas is some function of all these possible inputs that go into making boats and bananas. So it depends on the labor. It's a function of L. It's a function of K, physical capital. It's a function of the human capital. It's a function of technology. And maybe it's a function of a whole bunch of other things too, but those are the four big ones. Those are the four big inputs that determine how much is going to be produced. So this is called the production function. It's just this relationship between inputs and outputs. And of course, economists actually try to come up with equations, actual equations of the production function. They try to estimate what it looks like empirically and say, well, if you added this number of people to the economy, you should be able to get this much more output. Or if you added this amount more capital with machines, you should be able to get this much more output out of the economy. Now, let's say there's a country that can produce mini goods like this. And what we're going to do is put these infinite number of goods that the country can produce into two categories. So two categories of goods. Consumer goods and producer goods. So consumer goods are things that are produced for people to consume, literally and figuratively. So consumer goods are going to be things that people buy to eat and drink. They're going to be things that people buy to use, like their iPhones, pens, desks, all these kind of things that people use would be considered consumer goods. The abbreviation for consumer goods is a big capital C, which stands for consumption. Producer goods are things that are produced for companies to buy so that they can make more goods, more consumer goods. These are also known as capital goods. So think of these producer goods and capital goods as like machines that would go into a business so their employees can be more productive in making things. The symbol for these producer goods or capital goods is capital I, which stands for investment. So now let's draw the PPF for this country. Now, even though there's an unlimited number of goods here that this country is producing, we're going to put them in just those two categories. Producer goods, also known as capital goods, which can be thought of as investment. With the abbreviation I, and consumer goods, which have the abbreviation with a big capital C. Now, most economies produce, most of what they produce is consumer goods. So most of the things that are made by the economy are things that people buy and use up. A certain percentage of things that are made are these producer goods or capital goods for companies to use to produce things. Now remember this, the PPF for this economy is determined by the production function. So our output in the economy, so output in the economy is abbreviated with a big capital Y. And remember, this output is some function of all these inputs: the labor, the physical capital, the human capital, and technology. If any of those inputs change, the LK, human capital, technology, it changes the PPF. So given whatever they are today determines where this production possibility frontier is going to be. And if the economy is operating at its potential, we're going to be right out here on the edge of that PPF. Now, the people in this economy have a choice about what they want to produce, how many consumer goods they want to produce, and how many producer goods they want to produce. And that makes a difference on what life will be like in the future for them. So let's say that the people in this economy decide to pick this point right here on the PPF. And where we are on the PPF is a choice by the people in this economy. Depends on their preferences. How many capital goods they want to make versus how many consumer goods they want to make. So let's say they produce nothing but consumer goods, which are the goods that are used up, produced and used up. Well, if this is the PPF in 2020, what's the PPF going to look like in 2021? Well, it's going to look pretty much like the same as it did in 2020. As long as the number of people stay the same, and the amount of capital stays the same, and the human capital stays the same, and the technology stays the same, they'll be in the same boat. Next year, they'll produce about the same amount as they did the year before. But if the people want the economy to grow, they want to be richer in the next year than they were before, then something has to change. More of these inputs has to occur. There has to be more technology, or more physical capital, or more human capital. So now choice number one, we'll call this choice number two, would lead to the PPF in 2021 being in the same place. Now, what about a different choice? Let's say the people in this economy choose to be at this point in the economy during 2020. That would mean that they make this amount here of investment goods, and they produce this amount here of consumer goods. Well, these producer goods that they're making, called investment, adds to the total amount of physical capital that is available. So by choosing this one, choice number two, that means the amount of K will go up. So whatever amount of capital, physical capital we have right now in 2020, we'll have more in 2021 because we're going to be adding to that stock of physical capital by making more of it. The amount we make, more, the more of it, that amount that we're choosing to make more is referred to as investment. That means that K will go up. So in 2021, the PPF will look a little bit different. With more capital, we should be able to push this PPF out in 2021 because we'll have more physical capital and we can produce more with more physical capital. Suppose the people in this economy in 2020 pick a different point. Suppose they pick a point like right here. We'll call this choice number 3. And the difference is they have less consumption, more investment. So choice number 3 leads to a whole lot more of investment, this amount here, and this amount of consumption, which would be less than choice number 1 or choice number 2. Now with choice number 3, we have more investment goods that are produced in 2020, which means that should increase the stock of capital even more than choice number 2, which would mean that in 2021, the PPF would be out even higher. So here would be the PPF in 2021 with choice number 3. So the more that the people in this economy decide to produce for investment goods, less consumption goods, the more that's going to move the PPF out in the future. So they have less now. We can think of this as a savings. The less they consume, the less consumption that they have, the less consumer goods that are produced, means they have less now, but they have more investment goods, which leads to more capital, which leads to more output and a richer economy in the future. So it's like savings. The less they consume now and have more savings, the more they can have in the future. So increasing any of these things, capital, human capital, or technology, will push this PPF out, and labor too, will push this PPF out so that more can be produced in the future. And part of that is done by sacrificing now to have more in the future. Okay, so that about ends this module. What we've done is we've gone through a quick math review on the math you need to know for this class. We went through how to plot a function and calculate the slope. We went into correlations and regressions, which are the best fit lines to see if there's some association between variables that helps in determining causality. Causality is very hard to show and prove. About all we can do is show more and more evidence for causality, but there's also many difficulties in trying to show causality, like the ones we went over with possible omitted variables or reverse causality. We went over a model, a very simple economic model, macroeconomic model of the economy That was the circular flow diagram. Very, very simple model with lots of simplifying assumptions. Then we went through another model, model number 2 of the economy, which was the production possibility frontier. And we looked at how economists define cost as opportunity cost. And we went through diminishing returns. And in this last video, we went through how that PPF is determined, how the shape of it is determined and where it is. And that depends on the production function, which means our output in the economy is some function of a bunch of inputs. And the big ones are labor, capital, human capital, and technology. Then we looked at how this PPF can be shown to look at the economy and see what happens when we really save more and spend our efforts on producing more capital goods so that we can push that PPF out over time, have the economy grow and produce more and become wealthier as time goes on into the future. Okay, so that wraps up module number 1.